Hello, welcome to Side Quests. I'm Josh Silverman, which you may know me as a PR coordinator in the video game industry, but most people might know me for my love of the Mass Effect series, a love that goes so deep that I started a show this year called Massively Affected. Massively Affected is a show that dives deep into Mass Effect, but mostly our legacies surrounding Mass Effect and what that means to us. Myself and a guest each week come on, and I ask them a question: why Mass Effect? And that's where we go from there. There might be other questions, but that's really the core, that's the crux of the show, as it were. It's a great show. I love it. We did season 1. I am working towards a season 2, but I wanted to come on here today for side quests and talk about my love of Mass Effect. Essentially, I'm asking myself, why Mass Effect? So let's kind of get into it. So I'm going to be looking at Mass Effect 1 with you all, and one thing that's really interesting about the Mass Effect series that made me fall in love with it kind of funnily, that, I don't know, is that a word? Funny enough, Mass Effect is a series, was one I never expected to get into. I remember years ago, I think it was, I think I hadn't heard of the game until roughly maybe 6 months before it released. I probably heard of it in passing on some social media or something in those early days of social stuff, but it was my Bear Punch Media co-founder, Justin Stanley, who kind of just nudged me in a direction. He's like, hey, you should check this out. This game looks really cool. They are claiming that they're going to be making a trilogy where your choices get carried over, where what you do gets carried over. And that was this new concept. I think there might have been claims of people, or developers doing stuff like that, but nothing major. But he mentioned it came from BioWare, who, made Knights of the Republic, which, full disclosure, I love enough. I'm not some fervent fan who thinks it's the greatest thing that ever happened to Star Wars. I very much enjoyed the game. It's not my favorite Star Wars game, but I really liked what BioWare did with story. I really enjoyed that experience and the characters and stuff. So that was something that pulled me towards this Mass Effect, because, story and characters, that's my deal. At this point, I was in my early 20s. And yeah, so I did my research on it. I watched some of the, the trailers and videos and stuff, and I was like, I think it was like the Unknown Worlds trailer. I was like, this looks really cool. I don't like third-person shooters. I didn't like shooters at all at that point. I think I was only just starting at that time frame to admit that I was kind of interested in the Halo series, because I didn't like shooters at all, third or first person. That was just not something I was into. And then, he convinced me. I went to my local GameStop back when I still shopped there. I pre-ordered it because that's what I did. It's funny, I actually still have behind me. This is an audio thing, so it's pointless to gesture at this. But I have the bonus disc you got for pre-ordering. I keep it behind me as part of my little Mass Effect shrine of sorts nowadays. But yeah, this was. So I picked up the game. I remember going to the Arizona Mills Mall with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and picked up the game. Her and I went and sat in the food court, and I literally just read the manual aloud to her, because I don't know, something about this game was just exciting me. Paragon and Renegade instead of using light side and dark side, but the Paragon idea wasn't exactly light side, and the Renegade idea wasn't exactly dark side. Well, that's really interesting. What's the deal with that? Oh, it's like you're different classes and stuff like that. Well, this one, okay, so like it's quasi-force users and stuff. Like, again, I watched stuff before the game came out, but it really was just a case of I was some jackass with disposable income, luckily enough, in my early 20s, and I just bought a game because my friend told me to. There really was no logic behind it. So yeah, I took the game, went home, played it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I was bad at it. I started with a male Shep soldier, because my logic being the other classes, all the advanced classes, and yeah. The idea of playing an Adept wasn't too interesting to me, and the Engineer wasn't too interesting, and, Vanguard, Sentinel, and Infiltrator were listed as these hybrid classes. Be familiar with the game beforehand, so again, I was bad at video games. I'm still not great at them, but I was really bad at games back then. So load the game up on casual, because video games you should be allowed to play on whatever the hell damn difficulty you want. And that's what I did. I played on casual, played Soldier, and yeah, I enjoyed the game, had fun, went through the choices and stuff like that, my brain min-maxing stuff for the best results, because I'm never going to replay this game, and that's kind of my mentality on things. And then I got, I got a good ways in. I fell in love with Nihilus from the get-go, loved that character, was deeply, spoilers obviously for this, deeply upset that, they killed him off immediately, because he's so pretty, and I love his, his crest and, stuff like that. How could I not love him? And then, met Garrus Vakarian and just fell in love with that character immediately. Like, he was like the character I liked playing in video games, that, well, term we now know, renegade, but, that dark side, but not evil dark side kind of character from Star Wars, like that kind of vibe of someone who's redeemable. I loved playing that in games, and Garrus was just there, and then Rex was just glorious, this sarcastic old bastard of a lizard man who'd been through it all, and those two characters kind of kept me going. I was a huge Seth Green fan, so Joker was right there, and loved the sense of humor, and I enjoyed the game, but I can honestly say it didn't enthrall me from the get-go. Again, I was not great at the combat. I thought the Mako was fun. I liked making music with by holding the weapons and trying to do the Terminator theme and things of that nature. But yeah, no. So then I got to Virmire, and Virmire was cool, but I met Sovereign, and the game unlocked. Literally, it was an unlocking moment. I'm sure a lot of people have had a similar thing with Mass Effect, but hearing Sovereign's speech and hearing how they looked down on, organic life, and that they were the actual villain, and that Saren, who was a cool villain up to that point, was actually a tortured soul who was kind of just trying to survive, and they weren't a good person at all, but survival instincts were just strong in them, and they wanted to, they thought they were doing right, but a term we learned in that game and more about as we went, indoctrination and stuff like that. Oh, so I was like, oh, there's so much more to this. Okay, I get how they're doing more of these games, and how this is a planned storyline and all that stuff. And it just clicked. If I remember right, to get to Virmire took me a few days of play, because I think I actually started Mass Effect, because it came around the same time as the original Assassin's Creed that I was more interested in. If I remember right, I actually played, because I've told this story wrong over the years, but I've been really thinking about it. This is the accurate version. I think I actually started Mass Effect, I played through Noveria, thought this game is cool, and then I went and played the entirety of the first Assassin's Creed game, from start to finish, damn near 100%ing it, before I came back and went to Theros, because Mass Effect was cool. Assassin's Creed sounds more interesting, and that's kind of was my mindset. And I don't regret that choice at all, but yeah, no, so I came back to Mass Effect, did Theros and stuff like that. So it took me 2 weeks, a break in between, and then yeah, but got to Virmire, and I just played through the whole game. I think that I got to Virmire somewhere around dinner time, so in that 5 to 7 p.m. range. And I just played through the rest of the game. And to be clear, I was also, I damn near 100%ed that first playthrough, so I think I finished the original Mass Effect. I think I saw the end credits of that somewhere around 7 o'clock in the morning, after I'd started playing that day around, the previous day around 3 p.m. And I weeped openly through the end credits. M4 Part 2 by Fonz is one of my favorite songs of all time. I was openly weeping. And then I restarted the game. Immediately I restarted the game. And I played through it again. And over the span of the next few months, I put, over the next month and a half to 2 months, I put 750 hours into Mass Effect 1. I started a thing where I was already a college dropout at that point I was already a college dropout, I believe, at this point, for one of my many times. So my girlfriend was at school. We lived together. She was at school, and whenever she would go to classes, which she was gone for about 6 hours, I would just try to beat Mass Effect before she came home. And I would do that. the main storyline, then when Bring Down the Sky came out, the main storyline and Bring Down the Sky, and I would just try to speedrun it. So I loved the games, and I started making character sheets. I wasn't a D&D person, but I made character sheets about it. Just cataloging my story choices for each character and trying to figure out what my canonical person was as we got closer to Mass Effect 2. And that was my Mass Effect experience. Obviously, you know, I'm only gonna get into Mass Effect 1 here, but you know, this developed into a love of the series that is the crux of the I use the word crux. I don't even know if I'm using it right, but it's the core of my career. Mass Effect doesn't exist, then Mass Effect 2 doesn't exist, then 3 doesn't exist. If 3 doesn't exist, then I don't start a podcast. I don't start a podcast, I don't figure out I'm an extrovert. I don't discover a love of talking to people, of interviewing, of this kind of stuff. I don't discover a love of marketing. I don't start my career. I don't then eventually come back to my love of Mass Effect and start the Massively Affected podcast. It's wild that, to me, that my story started with a game that I very much enjoyed, but I fell off of to play an entirely different game. Something in modern days, if I stop playing a game, I don't come back to it. My brain cannot hold on to the control scheme. I just don't come back to it, so it's wild for me to think about, you know, what happened here like 14 years ago. But yeah, no, so Mass Effect is very special to me, very important. It's not my favorite series of all time, funnily enough, but it's the one that's most near and dear to my heart, obviously, and Mass Effect 1 is what started that. The sense of exploration, the sense of this new world, reading the codex, learning about all these races, learning about what this living, breathing world was, and also it was, you know, I was a kid who grew up on two different things, Star Trek and Babylon 5. Star Trek was this utopia. It was the idealized form of what the future could be. And I loved it. I still love it. Star Trek is very special to me. But Babylon 5, my favorite show of all time, always had a special place in my heart because that was realistic. Humanity still fought within themselves. There was still, you know, bigotry. There was still... It felt like it felt like a reality of what the world would be, of what the universe would be when we discover aliens and when we just, you know, when we venture out into the unknown. And that always held me for me because it felt real, where Star Trek didn't. And Mass Effect was just Babylon 5 to me, but in a different way. Hell, the Citadel is much like the Babylon Station, you know what I mean? Like Babylon 5 Station. So it was like, it was that, and it was going into this real world. It was going to this real universe of how I expect things to be. People are still, you know, there's still bigotry. There's space. We always joke about Ashley and stuff like that. You know, being a space racist and stuff, and things that maybe not necessarily joke, but you know, it's a commentary on the game and stuff like that. And it was going out into this world of this unknown and learning so much about it. It's actually why I love Andromeda so much, which maybe I'll get the opportunity to talk about. It's just going out into this unknown, unrealized, now realized reality of a future and stuff. And I love the architecture, I love the designs, I love the Normandy, both, you know, SR1 and eventually SR2. I love these ships. I love the design, I love the Citadel, I love the visuals, I love literally everything about Mass Effect. There's no the music, there's nothing in this original game that I really don't love. It is a borderline perfect video game, and with a Legendary Edition, they made it perfect for me because it was a very hard game to replay after having so many hours into it and playing through 2, 3, and Andromeda and coming back to, and the Legendary Edition opened it up to me where I was like, nah, I can replay this game again. And I have so many more stories of Mass Effect, like the fact that I hated Tali for probably 500 hours of gameplay. And I think the last achievement I got before 100%ing Mass Effect on the Xbox 360 was the one to bring her through, you know, what was it, 45 side missions and, you know, pretty much the whole main story mission, was because I just didn't like her character. I don't know, childish. I can't even remember now why I didn't like her character, which is funny because she's now probably my favorite character in Mass Effect. And what happened is I was forced to get this achievement. I brought her through and I actually listened to her and I was like, oh, I was not aware what the Quarians were. I was completely misinterpreting this from what little exposure we really had. Holy shit, the Quarians are actually cooler than the Turians, and I love this concept of this quarantined race and stuff. Oh my god, this is beautiful. And I started really looking at their exosuits and stuff like that. I was like, oh, these are actually gorgeous. Oh, when you get the Colossus armor, oh, the red really... And yeah, no, just went down this spiral rabbit hole and fell in love with that character. And that's, again, what I love about Mass Effect. There was always more to discover hundreds of hours in, but I'm getting long in the tooth on this. I believe I'm hitting the upper threshold of what side quest is supposed to be on timing. So if you've taken the time to listen to me kind of ramble a little bit about Mass Effect, I really appreciate you, because, it's important to me. If you want to hear more of my stories, predominantly it's more of the people I'm talking to stories, including the wonderful Matt Storm, who runs this project here. Matt was my first guest ever on Massively Effective before I even knew exactly what I wanted the formatting to be. You can check it out. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on every single platform you can want it to be. On Twitter, it's at Mass Effect Pod, or Mass Affected Pod. I'm blanking on this right now, but it's affected with an A because it's how it affects us. I'm Josh. You can find me at Bear Punch. That's really the better place to find everything. I've got a fan house out there now where you could find more behind the scenes stuff on my podcasting and various other things. I'm going to talk more Mass Effect on there as well. And yeah, I thank you all for your time, and happy gaming.